to order the Water and Sewer Commissioner meetings for City of Glens Falls for September 8th. Public participation, I don't see anybody from the public that would like to make a statement, so billing issues, is there anything we need to go over, Steve, from any billing issues?
Actually, we don't have any right now.
Okay.
Hello.
So that'll move us right into the resolutions. With the first being approval of the August 3rd, 2020 Water and Sewer Board meeting minutes. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? The warrant, are there questions on the warrant?
Yeah.
Same thing on the bottom. I thought it was good cleaning, but all done.
Well,
Oh, no, sorry, that's not. Page 10 is,
After that, we read paving and supplies. What the paving and supplies do for?
what we're doing is we're buying things like manhole risers and stuff like that
Oh, okay.
to and also sometimes we buy a variety of things from them, and it's all involved with correcting any problems we find as we mill the streets, and also bringing the catch basins and the manholes up to snuff and getting them up to the right grade for the new pavement.
Yeah, I was wondering, it said paving and supplies.
Yeah.
Okay. And then page 12, MC environmental, I thought that, that was, grid screening all done.
Well, that's a continuing process where, every day we're getting
Oh,
a load of grit and screenings in. And we've been getting higher quantities right now because we're disposing of the sewer cleaning debris that's produced both through, well, actually through 3 different sources right now. We have some CCTV, which is associated with MJ's work on the Maple and Walnut. We also have the city's CCTV sewer cleaning and inspection contract. And then we have the work that is related to what Arcadis is doing for the gravity sewer I&I study.
oh, okay.
So, we have that disposed of here. It's a lot cheaper than paying them to haul it somewhere else.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So that increases what we have.
That's
Yeah.
all my
any
questions.
more questions on the warrant? A motion to approve?
So moved.
A second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. Number 4 is discussion. First is Maple Lawn on improvement presentation by MJ Engineer.
Okay. And, I asked them to limit their team to 1.
That's just one, just me. I was also told to limit to 15 minutes, so I'll do my best to
Yeah.
make it quick.
Yeah, brevity is the soul of wit. It's from Hamlet, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll get through this pretty quick. Not
Can
gonna-
you identify yourself?
Yes, my name's Steve Hauser. I'm with MJ Engineering. And I'm tasked with, we're working on the Maple and Walnut sewer improvements. So we'll do is kind of get right through here. So really what we want to address today is we're just going to cover kind of the project backgrounds, our objectives.
Mike, do you have one of those?
I can see your mic if you wanna come. What do you think?
I've got one more if you,
Sure. Cause I'll follow the
Okay, so as I was saying, really what this presentation is just going to cover is the project background, objectives, limits, and the work that we've performed thus far, and kind of where we're going as we proceed over the next couple months. So there's an existing sanitary storm sewer system on Oak Street, Maple, and Walnut, which we're taking a look at. It consists of various sizes between 10 and 24 inch, multiple different pipe materials from PVC to clay pipe to some actual concrete pipe. And really what we're trying to do is eliminate sources of I&I in the sanitary sewer system. When we get heavy rainstorms, we've got cross-connected catch basins which are tied directly to the sanitary sewer system. And eventually those rain flows make their way to the treatment plant, and when those flows exceed the treatment plant's capacity, they have to bypass. So this is a small section of the city that we're looking at to basically remove as much of that I&I as possible. And again, so really the first step of the work that we're doing is performing the field investigations. From there, we start to look at different improvements we can make to the storm sewer system, whether it's with green infrastructure or more of a conventional pipe and manhole type system. And then we'll make some recommendations in an engineering report and design documents for the city to review and approve. So I said our limits basically start at the intersection of Oak Street and Warren. They extend up Oak to Maple Street, down Maple, and then up Walnut Street to Dix Ave. And as you see in the little photo there, that's basically the limits of where the majority of our work is going to be performed. As we kind of continue with this, you'll see we kind of branched out a little bit when we did some flow monitoring to kind of get a better idea of how much I&I is coming from this entire area, but the limits of our project is just confined to the yellow highlight area that we're going to see here. So our field investigations that we've completed thus far is we contracted with Aerial Construction to clean and CCTV about 5,200 feet of storm and sanitary sewer. MJ personnel, we perform manhole inspections on about 28 manholes. I believe there's 20 storm structures and 8 sanitary manholes. We currently have flow monitoring equipment installed, which we'll get to those locations. And then we've also performed a full topographic survey of the entire project area. So as I said, so we perform CCTV work on the sanitary sewer. It's about 2,800 feet. Basically this process is Aerial Construction or whoever we would contract with. For lack of better terms, they take a remote control car with a video camera on it and they drive it down the sewer piping. First they go through clean, then they go through and inspect. And what they're looking for are major defects of the sanitary piping, whether it's cracks, holes, I&I, infiltrators, runners, and they also note all the lateral connections. So as they were going through this section of sewer piping, the most common defect were cracks and holes in the existing pipe. There were holes in the pipe where soil was visible. There are a lot of lateral connections that you can see that are leaking. Even under dry conditions, they're still leaking. And this photo here on the right is kind of a good example. This is a 24-inch sewer piping on Oak Street that you can see the water is dripping right down from the top of the pipe. Now they performed this work on a dry day, so even on a dry day, they're still getting infiltration through this 24-inch pipe. So this is a continuous flow through that pipe that we will take care of in this project to eliminate. As we go to the next slide. So they did the exact same thing for the storm sewer as well. Almost all of the storm sewer piping is corrugated metal piping. They inspected about 2,400 feet. There is a few small portions of PVC as well, but the majority of it is this metal pipe, and the most common with the metal pipe was these huge root balls that are located within the piping. There was a bunch of root balls that they actually had to abandon some of the survey work, which as part of our project we were going to have them come through, do a little bit more heavy cleaning, cut out these root balls, and then continue with the survey, and then I'll mention kind of what we're going to be doing as remediation as we get there.
Is that a root ball you understand?
That's a root ball right there in that photo, yep. So you can see it takes up almost 85% of the pipe.
Yep.
And that'll come from, cracks in the pipes or seams and holes in the roots just eventually make their way into the pipe. And then you get something that looks like this where it's trying to move all this water through it and there's a big root in the way, so. If you guys have any questions along the way, just feel free to stop me or we can take care of it at the end.
Well, if you could, speak up, and slow down a little bit, it'll help us, with the people who are watching this
Sure.
on the YouTube
Okay.
channel.
Perfect. Okay, so the next thing we looked into were manhole inspections. As I said, we performed 28 manhole inspections, 20 on the storm, 8 on the sanitary. And what we do with these is we go out, we pop the covers, we take photos, we take measurements, and we note any deficiencies within the manhole structures themselves. Whether it's multiple connections that weren't picked up on survey, existing survey conditions, or in the case of the photo that I've got here, the bench and the trough is basically completely gone in the manhole structure, and it's full of bricks. Ignore the white milky substance that's going down the manhole structure. We're more or less just looking at the actual condition of the structure itself. We did this for all the storm and all the sanitary structures within our project work, or I should say in our project limits. And on the next page, you'll kind of see a very quick sample of the inspection reports that we provide to the city, where we go through and we note the manhole material, if we notice any grit, the cover, the frame, infiltration, and then we actually go through and we rate each portion of the manhole, whether it's the cover, frame, steps, pipes, the barrel. And all this will be put together. It's in a memo that we provide to the city, and we make our recommendations based off of these investigations that we perform. So that's just a very basic, simple example of what we provide to the city when we do these inspections.
Did you go down into the manhole?
We don't go into the manholes, no. All we do is we open the covers up and then we use our tape measure and we measure the different inverts coming into the structure. This one doesn't have the inverts on there because we actually have our survey crew that when they go through and do the full topo survey, they can get much more accurate measurements than we can with our tape measure on the side of the road. So our survey crews have gone through and did the full topo, so we have all the invert information that we need, and they'll get transformed basically onto these structure valuations.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So the other thing that we've been working on and we're still working on is the flow monitoring. So we've included 4 flow meters throughout the project area as well as neighboring streets to where we're working. We want to be able to quantify the amount of I&I that we're seeing within the system. So we picked a few manholes, we picked some manholes, basically the last manhole on each street before it dumps down into Maple Street. So we can say, when a rain event comes through, we can check that meter and we'll know exactly how much inflow and stormwater is being treated from that road. So at the time of installing these meters, we got 3 meters in on May 27th and June 30th. The only meter that we've been having issues with is the one at the very bottom, which is FM1, which is on Oak Street. We want this meter to be able to, we want to install a meter in this location to quantify all of the inflow from the entire area, even areas that we're not monitoring with individual meters, because we've only been able to kind of capture these 3 streets here, which is Walnut Street, Cherry Street, and Cooper Street. So that meter was installed on August 6th. We had an area velocity meter in, but the flow was so clear and so fast that it wasn't able to pick up a good read. So they had to pull that meter out and go with a different technology, and they've got like an ultrasonic level that they've got in there. And we're hoping to get the readings on this. I actually think he's out there today or tomorrow to pull the readings on that. So we'll be able to quantify the entire flow for basically the entire area. But with the meters that we've had so far, really the scope of what we want to do is monitor for 90 days and capture a 1-inch event. So we were lucky enough that I think the second day we had these meters in, we captured a 1-inch event, and then after that we captured almost a 3.5-inch event. So if you go to the next sheet, we've kind of tallied the flows that we've received from each area. So you have FM2, which is Walnut Street, which is the area that we're primarily working on. FM3 is on Cherry, and FM4 is on Cooper Street. So we figured the best way to kind of just show the huge increase that we're seeing is to really take the average daily flow reading on a normal day from each flow meter and compare that to what the dry weather peak flow is and then what the wet weather peak flow is. And we treated the dry weather and wet weather peak flows as the highest reading received that day, whether it rained or it was a dry day. So in our project area, the average daily flow is 10 gallons per minute. So at any time when you average all the flow throughout the day, you're going to see roughly about 10 gallons a minute come through that system. During a dry weather day, the peak flow recorded on average was about 25 gallons per minute. So that's maybe when you first wake up in the morning and everybody's taking a shower, everybody's getting home from work, you got the laundry running, you're seeing about 25 gallons per minute is your peak flow. On the day we received 3.5 inches of rain, the peak flow recorded was 718 gallons per minute coming through that one flow meter, which is equivalent to a peaking factor of about 71. Now typically in the city, when you're designing sewers, you're going to be in between the 2.5 to 4 range is kind of your general design guidelines for sewers. So it's pretty clear that we've got a huge spike of storm flows coming through our system here on Walnut Street during rain events. And then you can see as you kind of continue on the table, the two areas that are kind of outside of our project area are seeing huge spikes as well. So we've been able to gather this information, provide it to the city to say, okay, well, we're taking care of, the FM2 area on our project. However, you do have issues on, on Cherry Street as well as Cooper Street. So we've been able to provide at least that information to you guys to see that you still have major inflow in those systems. So we'll go to our recommended improvements. So for the sanitary, really what we're going to look to do through the system is to line the sewer, the two sewer systems. We've got a lot of 10-inch pipe and 24-inch pipe. We feel like we're going to be able to go through, install a liner. Are you guys familiar with like the felt liners in the sewer systems? That's basically what we're going to propose. We're going to propose to run a felt liner through the sanitary system. There is one section of clay that we are going to propose to replace still. It's about 210 feet of pipe, and there's about a 30 to 40 foot section that we can't inspect. It's just in such bad condition the camera can't get through that section.
Whereabouts is that?
That's on Walnut Street, almost right at the intersection of Maple and Walnut Street.
Yeah.
So we're going to have that section fully replaced. There's also a few obstructions along the way. So as we're doing this full replacement of that section, you'll have a new section of PVC, and then it'll be joined on the other two runs will be line pipe. For the entire area, what we're going to do is we're going to inspect all the sanitary laterals. As you go through the CCTV footage, a lot of the laterals have a continuous drip/flow coming through at all times. So what we're going to do is we'll have our contractor come through, he'll inspect each lateral, and then based on the condition of that lateral, we'll either line it or replace it. We used this method on Ridge Street a few years ago, and it worked out really well. We had our inspector on site. As they were running the camera up the lateral, we were able to make the determination right away whether or not that lateral needed to be lined or needed to be replaced. So we'll take care of all the laterals on the street, and then we're also going to install cleanouts on all the sanitary laterals as well. So we'll have the locations from the CCTV footage, we'll have the inspection done, and then be able to locate right where to put the cleanout. So if there is an issue at night or during the day, the city has an easy spot to access that lateral and clean. So you'll basically have, theoretically, a brand new pipe from the right-of-way to the sewer main to kind of ease with the maintenance in this section here. And we do have a couple manhole replacements based on the inspections that we performed. The one that we called out there, we're going to replace. We're going to put in give them a nice new bench and a trough to kind of promote good flow through that sanitary structure. Slide number 14 is just a PDF of the proposed improvements, as I just mentioned. The areas that we're lining, the section that we're going to replace, a couple of the manholes we're going to replace. Again, it's just kind of a visual of what we just spoke about. So in the next sheet, we're going to talk about the storm improvements. Again, we're going to utilize CIPP liner. We're going to try to limit the amount of open cutting and trenching that we have to do. So we've got just over 1,000 foot of liner we're going to install. There is a small section of storm sewer pipe that is pitched in the reverse direction that we are going to take care of on this project. That is right, we'll be able to see it on the next sheet, but that's right at the intersection of Oak and Maple Street. It's off by a few tenths, so we're going to rip that out, get the right pitch on it, The big thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna pull out the existing catch basins, the solid catch basins, and put in dry wells. We're gonna promote infiltration into the sandy soils that we have in this area, and that's gonna help us with this green infrastructure idea. We're trying to promote the natural water cycle of taking rainwater and let it infiltrate through the soils rather than running it through piping and through manhole structures, eventually to an outfall. And then again, we're going to remove some cross connections from the intersection. Each intersection has catch basins that are tied directly to the sanitary sewer. So as we're installing these new dry wells, we're going to run the new piping to the existing storm system that's out there. We're lucky with this project that there's already a storm sewer system out there, so we don't have to install a brand new storm sewer system. So very minimal work when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Do you have, overflow from dry wells? Do you have,
Yep, so basically the way it'll work is we'll pull out the catch basins, we'll design the depth of those dry wells based on a storm event, and then what we'll do is we'll put the pipe up towards the top, and then we'll run that to the storm system. So any of the normal flows will come in, we'll infiltrate through the dry well. If we hit a major storm where we, a 5 or 6 or 7 inch event or something like that, the dry well will fill and then go out the pipe, and then it'll do the conventional, pipe and structure out to the outfall.
okay, thanks.
Right. Just to mention the green infrastructure, these are a bunch of the different techniques that we've looked at, and we've kind of gone with dry wells and tree pits and bioswales are all kind of viable options for what we can do here. Again, a lot of this is going to be based on some of the test pits that we're going to perform over the next couple weeks to confirm soil material. A lot of the bigger stuff, it's like porous pavement. It's not really great option here because we're not really doing a lot of pavement work. So I'd hate to start ripping up sidewalks and pavement just to put in porous pavement. I think we can handle a lot of that stuff with the dry wells. And as I said, as we continue with design, we'll have the city help us with the test pits and determine, exactly what we can use. And slide 16 again is just a visual of what we spoke about of some of the new work that we're going to be installing. Dry wells, a couple storm manhole replacements, and a lot of storm sewer lining. All right, and then just kind of a breakdown of where we're at with the schedule as well as the cost. Right now we're looking at about $864,000 to do all of the work. Now that's, at this point, it's carrying a 20% contingency, which that contingency will decrease as we continue and get closer to design. But right now we're about $864,000. We're looking at getting the city their engineering report and 80% design next month for review, and then that will get sent out to DEC and all the regulatory agencies for review. And then we're looking to get bid documents to the city early January. We'll open bids February, and then this will be a very early spring of 2021 construction. And that's what I've got for there. Hopefully I didn't put anybody to sleep. But if you have any questions or comments, please feel free.
So once the project started on construction, how long do you think it would take?
I think we have it in right now for 3-month construction. I think that's what we carried for inspection fees. I think it was 90 days.
So will the streets totally be shut down and we'll have to detour or what?
No, so with doing the lining work, well, Walnut is pretty tight, so it'll be tough to get a car through there during the day when they're performing the lining work.
Yeah.
But so it may be intermittent detours around those sections where the lining is being performed. But we're not going to be, open trenching through all the roads, and everything should be open back up at night. It's just when the trucks are in there, it's kind of not a long flatbed truck, but it's a longer box truck where they bring in, they have the liner on it, and then they, feed it through the manhole structures.
So we'll need to be able to have a timeline on that so we can let the business, that's a pretty busy industrial area.
Yep.
And we have a lot of delivery trucks and so on that go through there.
Yep.
So we will definitely need to have that so we can get that information out.
Absolutely. Yep. I think with the Ridge Street, we provided like weekly detour updates. We sent PDFs to the city to post on the website, but we could certainly do the same thing throughout this. And if we're working in this block, we'll just have to detour around one section as we're going.
Does anybody have any questions, Steve?
Yeah. You guys have any sort of projections on how much storm flow reduction we might get out of this?
Yes. So the hard thing with this section of Walnut Street is, we've got the two intersections of Walnut and Lawrence, and then Walnut and Maple. However, I think the biggest contributor is the Dix Avenue intersection. So you guys are taking care of that with another project where all of those catch basins will remove. So we'll have two good intersections on our own that we're taking care of, plus all of the lateral work that we're doing. So I think it's hard to quantify how much savings we're gonna see from the laterals themselves. But if we're, based off the flow meters, I think we're in the, the million gallon per day range for I&I. I'm hoping that we're gonna at least get, I would think 75% reduction for that area.
So you're hoping for, and you think we'll be able to get about a 700 gallon a minute reduction during
I
the
think
storm?
so. I think when we remove all the catch basin connections and really tighten up the sanitary sewer with the lining and lateral work, unless there's, I don't know if you guys have sump pump issues in this area, that would be kind of the next, factor that could potentially feed to the system. But I think we're going to take care of a lot of the, you've already taken a good section of Walnut and replaced it with PVCs. So I think we've got, a little bit, you guys take care of some of the work, and we'll just finish the rest of it as we're going down.
How far up Walnut are you going?
Right to Dix Ave.
All the way to Diggs?
Yep.
That's good, we just paved all that.
Well, a lot of that work up there is gonna be lining.
Yeah, so from Lawrence to Dix is all brand new PVC, so there's no sanitary open cutting through that area.
Good.
So we'll go through and we'll CCTV it, we'll inspect the liner, or I should say we'll inspect the lateral, and then for the clean outs installed, they'll be in the grass or right at the right of way, and then from that point we can line from the clean out to the main pipe, so there should be no open excavation
Good.
from that section there.
Unless
got a
we
problem.
find a collapsed
Exactly,
pipe
yes.
on a clean out.
Yup.
So we had it paved over the last 2 years, and National Grid came in and butchered it.
I've seen that, yeah.
So,
Yep.
all right.
Yeah, okay. And 700 gallons a minute, reduction would eliminate a few of our, overflows, right, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be good, and, hopefully we'll see that result, and, right now, your schedule is to have the design done.
I believe it's at the end of December. So we're gonna submit 80% to you guys about a month from today, just over a month from today, for your review, and then we'll send it out to DEC at the end of the month. I think we schedule like a week review for you, and then from that point we'll move on to 100%. I think we put in a month and a half review time for DEC. So if we get their stuff back early December, a couple weeks to turn around their comments, have everything back to you right before Christmas, and then start the bidding phase first week of January we have it listed.
So Mike White in behind you, he's our consultant for stormwater runoff and so on, so I think he has a question.
Sure.
Joe, that, stormwater flows down Oak Street to Warren,
Yes. Yep.
and then,
So it comes down Walnut, and then goes across Maple, and then down Oak.
yep. And, any concern that the street flooding there is, capacity issues on that Warren Street line?
No, I don't think we have any issues with capacity. We are gonna be adding a couple extra dry wells on Maple Street, because there's some lower elevations on Maple that we wanna take care of, so we're gonna put some dry wells on Maple, and then pipe that back to the existing infrastructure that we have there. But we haven't had any, flooding issues, I should say, from a capacity standpoint in this area. So I don't think installing dry wells and promoting the infiltration into the sandy soils should help with reducing the amount of storm flows that we've got coming down through there. And then again, the Dix Avenue, which is really the big intersection that we're moving, isn't gonna come down one anymore. It's gonna go, I believe, down Dix towards Ridge Street, I believe. So that one section is gonna be a nice little piece that we're removing completely from the storm sewer system. And now it's just really gonna be the Lawrence and then the lower down to Maple Street.
And so is there, do you have some sort of, estimate or idea on what the, infiltration capacity's
Not yet.
gonna be?
That's what we've got. So the next steps is we're gonna get some test bits performed out on site, do a couple infiltration testing, and make sure that obviously drywall is an acceptable practice to use out.
Yeah, do you know what it needs to be to drain
I don't
that
yet.
problem
No, not yet.
intersection there?
No, not yet.
But you're pretty sure you can get that to go down?
We've done this on South Street and Ridge Street. We've had really good luck with it. So I've got a, my hopes are pretty high. On my feeling, I'm pretty confident that it's going to be able to work here as well. But obviously, until we do some test bits and open it up, that's the only thing we got to confirm.
Have you
first.
done any at all to soil?
Not yet.
Okay.
We've done the soil mapping and research and
Yeah.
stuff like that, but we haven't done test bits.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I saw them dig a really deep hole on corner of Oak and Warren there, and it was sandy down to
Good,
12 feet.
good. Well, that's good to hear that. Yeah, we've had good luck in the city with a lot of our projects been in good sanding
Yeah.
material.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I got a question for you.
Sure.
On the north side of Maple Street between Walnut and Cooper, you have a partial sidewalk.
Mhm.
How's that gonna play into the project?
So that's something that we can certainly add as we're not doing any work along that partial sidewalk. I believe it's on the north side, correct?
Right.
Right in that industrial building I think is there.
Yep.
So that's something where we're not doing any open cutting there, but I think we've got some extra money in the contract where we can certainly continue that sidewalk on. It doesn't really, there's also, I think there's like no curb through there either. So there's little things like that we still have to kind of iron out a little bit to see, hey, can we take care of, we'd like to put a curb line in to promote flow to our dry wells. There should be more than enough money to extend that sidewalk down to connect onto Walnut Street. So a lot of the kind of, I would say like the finer little details of that we'll continue to work on, and then we'll provide that to the city for review. And but I don't think it shouldn't impact the work that we're doing, but we could certainly help make it a little bit better than it is right now.
Once they get a little further along with the design, then we'll see, how the cost estimate is shaping up. And we'll see what other work we could include in the project.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay,
All right?
all right,
I
thanks,
think-
Steve.
No problem. Thank you.
If you wanna go on to the next, I wanna show him this picture.
Okay. So, on Dix Avenue, unclog my glasses. Well, we have their report. And on Dix Avenue, we had a question about the budget. And we got a response from Creighton Manning on that. Basically, I think what they summed up was that they should have updated the original program budget, which I think they left in there for reference, to reflect the actual estimated cost of the work.
Thank you.
But we bid it, we rebid it, we got a slightly lower price. But still, it came in higher than we expected. And this, according to the contractors, seems to be reflecting problems with obtaining materials. Stuff comes from all over the place, and with the current pandemic, it's a little hard to line up materials, and the prices are going up. So the sewer share came in at 963,422. And the basic water share came in at 851,923. Now the basic water share includes, well, the sewer share includes addressing the drainage issues that we discussed earlier with MJ Engineering at where Dix Avenue flows down, the side streets there, and making sure that we separate all of the catch basins from the sanitary sewer. The water included replacing an unlined 4-inch cast iron water main that extends out from Ridge a ways, and that we definitely should do. Then there was an optional stretch of 6-inch line that extended from there out to where the line changes to 12-inch, and that was the bid alternate. On the base bid also included, at the intersections, we were going to upgrade the piping and the valving at each intersection along Dix Avenue, so that any future work wouldn't have to tear up that pavement, and so that we would have a bunch of new valving along the way, which would help us to isolate portions of the city when we have a water main break a little bit better, and would also facilitate our kind of future program that we have to get into of valve replacements. So it helps us to better isolate all those sections of the city on either side of Dix Avenue. So the ad work to upgrade that 6 to 12 was $349,000. So that's kind of, I would say, optional. I'm sorry, 6. All those lines would be upgraded. The 4 would go to 8-inch, and the 6 would go to an 8-inch. So I say this is kind of optional. I think it's a good idea to do it, but it is, you know, the project is coming in a good bit higher than we anticipated.
Yeah, but can you do it any cheaper in current bidding?
Well, you know, as we talked about with other projects, it's always more economical to undertake this work as part of one of these pavement restoration jobs, because you save all that restoration work.
Yeah.
All that, you've already got a contractor mobilized, you save all the paving work.
Yeah.
So, and that's a substantial cost.
Yeah. I got a question in the resolution. I don't know if it's appropriate to say it, but on the third resolution, 851 and 23 and 349. It looks like you're bidding twice for the regular.
Oh, well, you know, what I did was I have a resolution here for the 851, if that's the way we decide to go. I have another resolution that includes the alternate. So you wouldn't do both of those, you'd choose one.
Okay.
Or neither, of course,
Okay.
is an option. So I'll try and recap that again. The base bid for water included a 4-inch water main replacement from Ridge Street out partway over to the 12-inch line that comes down. Yeah, burn. So it would go from Ridge, I think, to Walnut Street. And then the other piece would be from Walnut to Burn, which is upgrading a 6 to an 8. And then that would give us an 8-inch line all the way over from the main on Ridge Street out to that 12-inch, which should help to loop the system better and improve some fire flows. And also get rid of some very old pipe, well over 100 years old. And then the other part of the water project, which is in the base bid, is at each intersection where we have, no matter what size pipe we have, we would put an 8-inch section in and run 8-inch lines out to either side and put in 8-inch valves. And it would be all new valving, and that would facilitate future valve replacements and help us to make repairs during water main breaks. Sometimes if we have bad valves, we can end up closing down, you know, instead of just 2 or 3 valves, sometimes it's 6, 8, 9, 12 valves that we have to try and crank down to get the water slowed down. Which, you know.
Okay, yeah, good.
So anyway, so that's all in the base part, and then the section between I think Walnut and Burn is the 6-inch. That's kind of an optional upgrade from 6 to 8. That's also very old pipe, pretty near 100 years old. It's also unlined cast iron.
Is that pipe going down Dix, is that what feeds that whole area?
That feeds that whole residential area there, but a lot of the water actually tends to come down Burn, which is a 12-inch line that kind of comes across the north part of the city and down. And then that 12-inch line goes out to Dix Avenue. So we're not really getting a lot of flow from the Ridge Street side, and we're not able to flow water toward Ridge Street either very well, because that 4-inch pipe, I would estimate, has a opening in the middle of
Probably,
about
yeah.
an inch square at this point. So, the question is how the commission would like to proceed.
Yes.
What is the cost, you know, this is a grant of some sort?
Now, this here would be bonded,
Yeah, there's no grants on this
Okay.
one.
right?
We got money for the paving project.
Yeah.
So we figure if we're doing a paving project, we better do the infrastructure. So we got a transportation, money from the federal government to do the paving up to, Platt Street. So that's why we're doing, you know, we figured out we might just want to do the water and sewer line. So if you guys are okay with, moving ahead with the water part of it? Okay, I look for, motion to approve that.
With or without the alternate?
I thought that was, the alternate was for the sewer.
No, the alternate's for the water.
Okay.
Yeah, I would approve that, the alternate.
I think we should, if we're digging up the street, saying,
If you're gonna bond it, might just swap.
So 1,200,923.
Yeah. So,
Motion,
you made the motion?
Yeah, I make a motion,
second.
all in favor?
Yes.
yeah, yes.
All right.
Sewer part?
Now, the sewer portion, there's no alternate there, and that's $923,422. Sorry, $963,422.
I'll move the motion for that one.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yes.
All right.
Right there.
Home Street parking lot.
So, we're about, I would say, close to 3/4 of the way done with the Elm Street parking lot work. it seems to be, working pretty well already, the parts that are done with the dry wells installed. We have a, let's see if I can pull it out here. We should have a memo about that. Let's see if I can find it. No, I don't know if I have it.
I think that's it, I saw it.
But, so that's moving along okay with Johnson Construction. Right now, we're working with him to try and make sure that he complies with all of the MWBE requirements, or gets a waiver. So, we're working through that right now. He's moved out of the main parking lot for now, and he's, out near the Exchange Place, starting to work on that portion of it. And, you know, it's been a little tight in there because National Grid has been working in the area, electric and gas, and Verizon's been working in the area with some stuff, and also they're rehabilitating the old Octobot built Jewelers building, installing a stair tower and elevator
A lot going
in the
on.
back there. So it's been pretty tight, but the contractors have been cooperating, working together, and coordinating with each other.
Okay.
And I like the way the granite curbing and the rain gardens look along that edge. I think it actually kind of dresses that area up.
It looks good.
Yeah. And we've also been working with some of the building owners to do additional connections from roof drains into the new stormwater system, which is gonna take all of that impervious roof drainage area off of the 36-inch sewer main on Glen Street.
Yeah.
So that's good.
So I'd like to jump over D and go to E because David is a little bit involved in third ward storm sewer, Chester to Sanford. You wanna go over that?
Okay. So that's a little difficult because we don't have, we have a long-standing series of problems there with some very old 24-inch clay tile storm drain where a creek was piped, converted to a storm sewer years ago. So we went in there a couple years ago and we started just south of Chester Street. We relocated the sewer out from underneath some buildings that had been built above it. We put a new crossing of Chester Street in, and we ran back a ways as far as we could get agreements from property owners. And that helped things out, and it addressed some problems that we had there. But because we couldn't carry it all the way through and eventually out to Sanford on the north end, we kind of got hung up and didn't fully resolve the problems. So right now we're working on getting agreements from property owners so we can get in there and do a detailed inspection of it and maybe some cleaning work. And you're working on that, Dave?
Yeah, so there are some, just to it started before I came on board as the water sewer attorney. Jim Lepin started trying to get easements from a lot of the owners, and then I finished it up. Some gave temporary easements only, some gave permanent easements that allows the city to go in, keep, maintain, reconstruct, and then there were people that just flat out refused to do anything. So, we've got a list, and we've got a list of who gave easements, who didn't, and then what we're gonna try to do for the others is get permission with a license agreement to go in and do the inspection, and then depending on what the inspection shows, then we may have to go to the next step to get some type of easement if work has to occur on the individual properties. So that's kinda where we are.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, if it's work that absolutely has to be done, the city could look at an eminent domain situation because it's something that's gotta be done, but hopefully, you know, if we can enter into the right types of agreements with the property owners, it wouldn't come to that. And
Yeah.
everybody would just be in agreement.
Yep, and that would be the best way to do it. So, as soon as we have some legal access, barring any really unfortunate occurrences, you know, where we have to go in on an emergency basis, we're gonna wait until we have that and then get in there and start the process of inspecting and then perhaps cleaning the sewer lines to see what's what.
Okay. All right. Henry Street improvements.
All right. So far, they've completed their survey mapping, closed circuit television inspection of a lot of the lines. We've done soil sampling using something called a geoprobe, which is kind of a big hydraulic punch. We have a design and schematic design plans, and we're moving forward toward the next milestone, which is 60% complete. Right now, it's about half done, and we've got a little bit more survey work to do, and then we're going to work on construction cost estimates, and they'll be giving us a set of plans for review. So this is scheduled to be ready for bid, like a lot of these things right now you're seeing, late December and early January. We're trying to get this out early winter, early in the year, which is usually an advantageous time for bidding. And at that time, we'll have a better idea of estimated costs versus what we budgeted. So that's work being done by CT Mail and Associates. And then I think the water storage tank.
Yep.
Also on here. Anybody notice the strange hat that's on the tank right now?
No, I
Looks a bit like a chef's hat or something, but what it is containment, because they're blasting the tanks using steel grit, which is, it's nice because it's easy to recover and reuse,
Oh.
and it doesn't generate a lot of silica dust, which can be a problem. So we got the tank isolated. They have blasted to a near white metal finish, it's called. The whole inside of the tank basically took just about all the paint off, anything except stuff that's really tightly adhered, and they did a pretty good job, took almost every bit of it off, and then they got off any rust, so it was pretty darn clean. And now we primed it with a zinc-rich epoxy primer, and then once that is done, then they're going and doing something called stripe coating, because the hardest part to paint is the weld seams. They're irregular, so they go over that first, which is stripe coating, and they stripe all of the seams in all the panels. So they're about halfway done with that, and the exterior is blasted and primed, about 85%. And they've completed all of the modifications to the roof vents. We're going to put on a wind-powered ventilator on top to help extract disinfection byproducts. We're going to try and remove those disinfection byproducts through the mixer we're putting in. So that work is all done. And the tanks are going to be painted to pretty much match the original color that they were, which in the Tnemic's color scheme, by the way, is interesting. It's a color called Glen. So it's a Glen blue. So they're going to look, hopefully, like they did when they were new. A little more blue than they've looked lately with the chalking paint, the older paint. So they're anticipating that about 10 days from now, they're going to be ready to fill the tank.
Oh.
So they're going to fill it, disinfect it, and then we'll do disinfection testing, make sure that that's good. And then we'll start the process of draining down tank number 1 and getting that one ready for painting. So if all goes well, we'll have both of these tanks done this year.
How do you clean the inside of the tank before painting? How do you do that?
Well, first it's all pressure washed,
Oh, okay.
and then it's actually grit blasted with the steel grit.
Oh,
It's blasted down, what we say, the near white metal finish. So it's a near white metal finish. It's just got, maybe you can see a little dot or two of paint here and there, and kind of you might see like a rusty shadow, but you won't see any actual rust. A little discoloration on the metal. And it also has kind of a rough finish, which adds some tooth to the steel so that the paint like fills in all those little dimples and grits and really grabs on.
Yeah, but how do you clean it? The vacuum or the grit finish?
The grit is like sandblasting,
Yeah.
and the guys are going up and down on harnesses rigged from the top to do the work. And then how do they clean out the bottom of the tank?
Yeah.
It's actually vacuumed out.
Yeah. Okay.
Most of the grit is extracted directly from the blasting operation.
Oh.
They've got like a thing that catches it, and they've got a big
Oh, okay.
they got a big piece of equipment outside that's got filters and separators in it
Yeah.
that collects the grit, and they drop it into barrels,
Okay.
and so they can reuse it.
Okay.
You know, the grit that we're using here has been, a lot of it's been used on other jobs, and you know, they add new grit as necessary, and this will go to somebody else's tank later.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's part of the Suez contract we have, which should not have any extras, and
Yeah.
the only extra we have is going to be the roof vents, because that was added later, and that wasn't a really big cost, and we can cover that from our budget, so that's what we're going to do on those roof vents. And then we've got our closed circuit television contract going on this year, and you know, the contractor's been working hard, and we've given them some difficult streets to work on. Some areas have a lot of debris in them and they need heavy cleaning. Some areas have higher flows, like Webster Avenue, and we're going to try and coordinate that with the water plant operation, because the backwash from the water plant comes down
Okay.
Webster Avenue.
Yeah.
But you know, like all the TV contracts we've done, we find quite a few problems, and it gives us some planning information. Some things that we find we fix right away because it's critical. And as usual, we find a lot of manholes that have been paved over repeatedly over the years. Were kind of lost to us, but we're bringing them up to grade and making that sewer accessible for cleaning again.
Yeah.
So it's something we've been doing now for a dozen years, and it's been working out pretty well for us in terms of knowing what we have and where we need to focus our efforts. For the gravity I&I study, which is we're doing with Arcadis, they did smoke testing, and everybody has a map here. And on this map, you'll see stars, which are called smoke emission locations. And these are locations where, when we pressurize the sewer line with smoke, it comes out of catch basins or other openings in the street. And right away we can see that there's definitely some areas along Washington where we have some big parking lots where we have a lot of catch basins connected. And that might be an area where we look at what we can do to get that stuff all connected to storm sewers, or maybe put in additional storm sewers to take that flow off of the gravity sewer system.
That was just a gravity sewer, right?
Yeah.
Tested it, gravity.
Yeah. And also, you can see that there's a decent amount along Elm Street. That need to be disconnected. And the difficulty we have sometimes is we find these catch basins hooked to the sanitary sewer, but we don't have a storm sewer anywhere near it. So we gotta try and look for an economical way to redirect these flows. In some cases, it might mean that we go in and we put in a lot of dry wells, drain infrastructure to try and soak a lot of that water into the soil rather than having it go to the sanitary sewer. And and remember what happens here when we have these storms that seem to create most of the bypasses right now is we'll have an intense storm and we'll have a rapid climb and flow, and it generates a sharp peak, and we bypass the top of that peak. If we can, pardon the phrase, flatten that curve by infiltrating some of that water, or even just temporarily storing it in dry wells, that might help as well. It will help. Not as well as disconnecting it entirely, but we're going to look at those options, and Arcadis is going to make some recommendations. But, we're moving along pretty good, and the fact that they're doing flow metering as well to help identify the high flow areas at the same time that we're doing the flow metering on Maple and Walnut means that we're getting a lot of very good data that could be used to upgrade our hydraulic model of our sanitary sewer system and give us a better idea of where those storm flows are that we need to attack.
Did you get a lot of complaints for residents for the smoke set?
You always get a couple, but actually not that many. It hasn't been that much of a problem. I was once smoked for a large psychiatric hospital complex in New Jersey and inadvertently caused the evacuation of their biggest building, which was a bit crazy. But we haven't had that happen here too much. We have a couple of buildings where we get some smoke in them. We carefully coordinate the activities with the fire department. They're going to roll anyway if they get a call.
Yeah.
But if they come out and we let them know that we're on the site and it's our smoke and it's not a fire, and then saves a lot of putting on Scott air packs and stuff.
Yeah, right.
But we find only a couple of incidents where that was that happened. So that's moving along well, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to get a decent plan for which we can use in future funding applications.
Oh, right, yeah.
So we talked about.
I think we got it all.
Okay.
Nothing under personnel or executive session.
I don't know.
Next water and sewer workshop is on the 21st, and that'd be at 2 o'clock, correct?
Okay.
No, that would be a workshop meeting.
Yep.
And are you guys comfortable with what we've been doing with sending out reports at this point?
Yeah, I'm fine,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So
Okay.
then the next regular water and sewer board meeting would be October 5th at 2 p.m.
You gotta meet at regular meetings, at, 6 instead of, or 2 instead of 6 all the time now. We were meeting at, at that, 2 o'clock, or 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll move them up to 2 if we could.
Okay.
All right, so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Yeah.